现在在台上这位呢是曹志浩 Howard Tsao，他是这个 Muse Games 的 Team Lead， 也是这个 Founder。那我要稍微解释一下为什么现在另外一位讲者在荧幕上，是因为这个美国政府冲康，所以这个另外一位讲者就是 Keenan Mosimann， 他很不幸的，就是这次没有办法成行来台湾，但是我们还是想尽办法让他在这个巨大的时差之下，为大家在 Skype 上演讲。那这场还是会有 Howard 跟 Keenan 两个人就是合讲。那我们就是用热烈的掌声欢迎 Howard。
Yeah, that's gonna be my joke, but you took it away. That's cool though. So this talk, that's Keenan. So this talk is actually gonna be centered on YouTube. It will be about how YouTube's grown and how developers have been taking more advantage of the prominent role that YouTube plays as a vehicle for getting the word out, and also kind of our experiences with Guns of Icarus journey through YouTube. And Keenan's going to talk a little bit more about how some of the elements in gameplay or in game design translates to the YouTube audience. And yes, that is my partner, Keenan. And I'm here. He's not. I've been eating all the good foods on his behalf, which is I've been posting on Facebook regularly. So he had some issues with his passport because the mighty U.S. government lost it. And along with his birth certificate, so technically he only exists on the screen right now.
It actually just arrived today. I'll see if I can guess where it is.
Are you kidding? All right.
Look, I officially.
He's actually officially a U.S. citizen again. So I'm Howard. I'm the team lead of Muse Games, and we make Guns of Icarus. And
I'm Keenan. I am both a YouTuber. I go by the name Criken online. I'm also an indie game developer. I showed off a game of mine recently at the IGF Award where we won Best Student Game. I'm a student at USC studying game design, so I have a lot of kind of different interests that I mix in.
Cool. So yeah, it's like the greatest logistical challenge in the history of talks. So I'm actually gonna hop. Wait. So go. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we can hop video. Or not.
Okay.
Cool. And now the actual presentation with Keenan's voice coming out of my computer. Okay. So to start off, I want to summarize some of the ways that I think developers are using to spread the word. Some are more internal driven, some are more external focused, I think. And for us, we start with the product itself, having ways in the game for players to get to share the games with their friends. And we actually have, so one of the things that we did is on Steam, on the Steam store page, we actually have a 4-pack so that a friend can buy a copy of the game and actually share it with 3 other friends. And this is really particularly important for us because we are all about 4 players crewing on an airship together. They have nowhere to go, and they live and die together. So this 4-pack has actually been really valuable for us. And the second thing is really about managing the community. And in a way, it's service, which is really hard, but it's about supporting the players, just fostering the community with community events or managing the forum, which can be a pit of hell sometimes, but we still dive in there. And social media. So in addition to stuff like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram recently, we're actually really, well, at least we're more active on stream than we've ever been. So some of the things that we'll do we'll play the game, say, twice a week with our players, and essentially we just get destroyed just about every time. But we still do it, and we'll stream the experience on our Twitch stream, and we'll put it on YouTube. And every Friday, we'll actually spend an hour just answering live-fire questions with our players. They can basically ask us anything we want. And we'll also stream that as well. And I think what's also important just for us for me to be here, or for people to share their experiences with other developers, whether it's successes or abject failures, I think it's really great to just kind of give back and share experiences. And So some of the other venues I would consider more external, one being platform. So we're primarily selling our game through Steam, but Humble Bundle or like just Humble Store is also like a really big way that we can do that as well. So in addition to talking to press and maybe try to get press coverage, I think it's also taking advantage of different events such as PAX or GDC, being here, and crowdfunding. Yeah, it's probably a really complicated topic beyond the scope of this talk. But I think just keeping that in mind, at least for us, has been pretty useful in awards. When the game launched, or before the game launched, we submitted a bunch of awards, and we're lucky to have won a few. And I think that's just a great way to get the game out there. And in addition to what we do, I think in the last 2 years, I would say, there has been more of a rise of influencers that are pretty prominent for games. And by influencers, I really largely refer to YouTubers and to Twitch streamers. But recently, we've seen more Vine, people doing stuff on Vine and on Instagram as well. But the focus of this talk will be on YouTube. And so I'll turn it over to Keenan to kind of give you guys more of an overview of YouTube, how YouTube's growing, and how its channels to grow with it.
Right. So we all know about YouTube. We all know it's kind of the premier place for videos on demand. What you might not know is really how much it's been growing over the last few years, and even month after month. There's over 1 billion unique visitors per month on the site. 40% growth in viewership year after year, which is incredible when you recognize it's only been around for about 8 years. It's 50% hour growth in hours watched on YouTube, which means people that are watching on YouTube are starting to treat it more as a premium form of entertainment and something that they can watch like a TV show almost, where before, the videos would be kind of shorter, but now they're growing longer and more interesting throughout, and people are treating it more like the channel system of different networks in the older media models. But not just YouTube is growing, also gaming on YouTube has been growing incredibly large year after year. If you look here, the top 50 viewed games are responsible for about 120 billion total views on the site. 95% of those views also have been earned rather than paid for. What that means is those views are being generated by creators like me who aren't necessarily being paid to make a video for a game, but are just playing it organically and sharing it with people. And it's far away from the publisher model that has been kind of the standard of gaming in the past. If you also look at this chart up here in YouTube advertising, you can see that in 2009, advertising on YouTube only really made about $450 million, but in 2013, it's made $5.6 billion. It's doubled almost every single year since 2009, and it's pretty incredible to see the amount of money that's been flowing through the site and what that's been able to do to different channels to empower them to make more creative, larger scale content, or for actual publishers, recognizing that the site has real potential as a marketing tool. You can also, there's a 99% correlation between the pre and post-launch YouTube views of a game. What that means is you can tell pretty well how your marketing is doing via your pre-launch views, be it trailers and other press outlets, to your post-launch views, because you can kind of get a good gauge on the interest of your game simply by watching how people are responding to it on YouTube. And lastly, Pewdiepie, who's the #1 most subscribed user on YouTube, has over 38 million subscribers, which, just to put that in context, I think we found out just recently he surpassed the population of Canada. So there are more people that subscribe to him than live in Canada, just to give you an idea of how many people are using the site and enjoying the content. That's just one user as well, not to mention all people in gaming. And the last chart over here, you can see YouTube games, the views generated by YouTube gamers, so kind of organic content creators, versus game publishers. It's a 19:1 ratio, which means indie gaming is this is the most important place for an indie game to launch, really, because you don't necessarily have that publisher to put money behind it. But on YouTube, you don't have to, which is the important thing. Here's another chart on gaming on YouTube and more about the search queries. And you can kind of see here, Pewdiepie, as I mentioned earlier, is just above the search Happy and Eminem, which is pretty impressive. He's right below Beyonce by 5%. Minecraft has topped movies, Frozen, and is just a little bit below music. So it's pretty impressive. Gaming has really kind of inundated the whole YouTube community and culture as it's become one of the most prevalent areas of the website. Next, a little bit of information on my own channel. My channel is Criken. I do comedic videos and Let's Plays of different games. I started about 7 years ago. Now I have 550-some thousand subscribers. I have, over the lifetime of my channel, there have been about 463 years worth of videos watched, which means if you break up the amount of time any individual person has spent watching my videos and laid it all after each other, then it'll equal about 463 years. I have several hundred thousand total views, and you can kind of see it in this chart down here, what the arc is like for a YouTuber. So in the top chart, you will see this is pretty much 5 years of my channel. You can kind of see the peaks and swells of different games are released that are very popular, and then if you jump on that early, you can kind of ride that, versus others are more slumpy if there are other things in the market that are pulling away from your share. In the bottom slide, you can see per video the views of a video on its release. So you see that big spike at the beginning, that's the day I release it. That's like 70,000 views or something like that on the first day. And then over the next 3 days, it starts to scale down, but then after those 3 days, it kind of levels out. So it's really important when considering when you're going to do a marketing push for your game, keep in mind that if a big YouTuber uploads a video of your game, you have about a 3-day window in which it's being viewed by a lot of people. Then after that, it kind of levels out into a steady stream rather than a big burst. Next, the Howard will carry on the next slide.
Cool. Am I still here? Yeah, okay. So this is actually a sales chart thing of Guns. And this is actually just, the chart is really Steam sales. There's a reason why I'm putting up this slide, and I'll explain to you in exactly 2 slides. So we're pretty fortunate, I think, in total sales, basically a little bit over 6 million and 700,000 copies and whatnot. It's been pretty awesome. But this slide this I put up before, but I kind of updated it just for fun, really. It's good. So in terms of bullets, ammunition wasted in the game, or shots fired, it's been now it topped 5.6 billion, which is kind of crazy. And then so there've been close to 8 million ships, 4 players on each ship, right? That have exploded in the skies. A lot of people perish in the skies in our game. And as far as match play, about 1.2 million, just over. Okay, so this is why I actually put up the slide earlier. So the earlier slide with the sales chart or whatever, you can see how it trends. It looks pretty smooth, like just a linear chart going upward. But actually, in reality, if you track it on a month-to-month basis, it's actually a lot more jagged than this. There's a lot of spikes, a lot of valleys. And so in addition to the opportunities that we get with Steam doing, a special sale, like a daily deal, or being on a new platform like Humble, or let's say we have a weekly bundle and whatnot, actually YouTube contributes a lot to the spikes. Okay, and so our exposure to YouTube really started with us just kind of sitting in our room, not knowing what's happening. And luckily, early on in beta and at the launch of the game, there were pretty prominent YouTubers who just found the game. So for example, Total Biscuit did a WTF, which is a famous series, and that got 380,000 views, which for us, we didn't have a good launch of the game at all. And so that at the beginning was really huge for us. And the middle one is, Yakast series. They did with Guns of Icarus. And apparently they've been playing the game for about a week before they did a video, and we had just no clue that was happening. And they got pretty proficient in the game, and the content was good because they were kicking butt. And so that video got, say, 1.4 million views. And so it's really those early YouTuber support that kind of got us, that propelled us, especially given that we didn't have a good launch, probably because of the hurricane. But anyways, a different story. But what's really interesting, though, is the graphic on the right. That's actually a video from Kovansky, and we have no idea who he was. And so one day we're just sitting around in our room, just kind of working on our stuff at a time where practically nobody plays the game, very few people play the game, and all of a sudden our in-game chats flooded with Russian players. And that took me a while to figure out that they were speaking Russian, and so there's just all these people chatting in Russian, and we're like, oh my god, what is happening? And about, say, a week and a half, 2 weeks later, we talked to some English-speaking Russian players, and eventually we found out that it was actually because 2 prominent Russian YouTubers found the game and started playing it and doing videos about it. And so one of the videos, they got 300,000 views. And as a result, we had no Russian players playing the game, I would say. And all of a sudden, we have a Russian community now. And so I think that just kind of speaks to the power of YouTube and YouTubers taking a game that doesn't exist in it for the audience and bringing it over there. And for us, it's pretty amazing. Like we would never have reach Russian players otherwise. And I think so. In that way, I think YouTube's actually pretty amazing. Okay, so this next, we don't have a trailer, but this is actually Criken playing the game. It's one of the videos that he did of the game. Just kind of give you guys an idea of what a YouTuber video actually looks like with Criken. Keenan, sorry.
There we go. Blue in the hole. Lovely, lovely. Pound them, pound them. Pound them. Pound them. Well-oiled machine is this one. All right, full acceleration.
Oh, big hits.
Watch out the engines. I'm about
all right. Oh, they're going down. They're going down. There.
Nicely done. Full rivets.
Oh, they're dropping right to the ocean.
Lovely, lovely. I like to see. Armor and burning.
Oh. Disaster. Oh.
Right up. Yeah, kick you behind it. Yeah, everyone on repass, please.
Oh.
Well,
I'll give it a surprise.
Disappointing.
He's got to focus. The hardest our energies.
Alright, one side.
Okay.
No, I felt the shit.
Oh, whoa.
Hit us with a wind gale, it seemed like.
Alright, yeah, I'm going to pass them. Port side. I'm on the flamethrower. Yeah, we're going to go right by it.
Oh, I see them. Scared away that boat. Flame them.
Beautiful.
Cook them alive.
Roast the bastards.
Boom, boom.
Oh, so much.
Yes.
Okay, and so the next part is really how we started doing, I guess call it like, whatever they call it, like branded events or essentially paid campaigns. Right? And so how that whole thing started was that we were at PAX one year as part of Mega Booth, Indie Mega Booth, I'm sorry. And it just happens that Total Biscuit and guys like Jesse Cox, basically YouTubers who have played the game, started, they do a podcast live at PAX, and they started talking about the game. And that got a lot of attention and has some pretty interesting ripple effects. One among which is that their network, which we didn't know that there was a network that actually existed, but so their network got wind of this and started to talk to us, and they checked out the game and saw us at PAX. And initially we didn't really think that much of it, but we kept in touch, and later they basically pitched us these events with multiple YouTubers. And so initially, I mean, this is like for money, which is like, I thought it was, I wouldn't say absurd, but like it was really kind of shocking to us. It was, we were definitely pretty stunned by it. And like the most amount of money that we ever spent on anything that's remotely close to so-called marketing was actually being at PAX. And so like what they proposed is actually, multiples of like what we spent at PAX. And so which is a huge sticker shock for us. And we're also really skeptical of that. If there's anything that's paid, is there going to be authenticity at all? So that was a huge question. But actually how we decided to take that leap of faith, take that plunge, largely because we actually talked to a couple of YouTubers who were proposed to be a part of the event, but who has done videos on the game. And they had worked with a couple other indie developers doing this, and so we decided to give it a shot. Just call it an experiment, and so we gave it a shot. And so the format was basically 8 people playing together, and they played in a, say, 2-ship versus 2-ship match, and it ended up being pretty interesting or pretty amazing for us in that before, like for us, it's just a trailer, and the trailer is edited, obviously, but it's really hard to get a sense of what people are doing on the ship and how our game is played, just because our game is pretty different. So it's really hard to explain that. But the videos actually, people can have full crews, all 8 people playing together. There's a lot of collaboration and teamwork that happened, and that element was able to show through. Whereas this is something that we can never capture in a trailer, for example. And their audiences have pretty much all heard of the game or played the game. So it's pretty targeted and focused. And that actually sparked, just because these YouTubers play the game, it actually spurred more YouTubers to check out the game, so there was a little bit of a ripple effect, which is pretty amazing. And so for that event, there was about 1.7 million total views from the videos, and we actually made a pretty good return on the money that we spent. So yeah, it was overall, I would say it was a pretty good success for us. And I think if I also look back and think about why that was, or what makes a YouTube event or a YouTube video successful for us anyway, first and foremost is audience fit. So say for instance, Total Biscuit's audience or Jesse Cox's audience, they're going to be more exposed to maybe not our game, but games that are similar. And so when they see their video on Guns, they're okay. They will be engaged with it. They will watch it, and we also have new content. So if we do a campaign or whatever, or an event, we'll actually have new content so that people are actually watching the same thing over and over. And we'll actually, the third aspect is just basically doing something special for the viewers. So whether it's maybe a Steam week-long deal or some Steam thing, or creating some items for the YouTubers that the viewers could then activate in the game. So I think all 3 ingredients combined, I feel like, made some of the events that we did pretty successful. And I think, I guess you can't really mention this enough, an added point about authenticity, which I think is really paramount to anything that we'll be doing, is that, so these are the different things that, for example, this group called Game Grumps did. So there is a paid event that they did, but then they also played the game. And recently, we have voice commands in the game, right? Which is people like Captain pressing a button, shouting instructions. And they actually decided so they thought it would be funny or fun to actually voice act and integrate that into the game. And so, whatever proceeds that we raise for that, we'll just give it all to charity of their choice. And so we'll do stuff like that, which is pretty rewarding. And, so they will stream the game, continue to stream the game, play the game. So I think at the end, if the video is not authentic, or people is just like, you watch some athletes endorsing some product on TV, and that just shows, right? It's just like you're reading lines, holding up an ad, or holding up a product, just saying something. I find it harder for that to translate. But if the authenticity is there, and they actually are already players of the game, then I think that matters. And ultimately, if people feel like the videos misrepresent the game, we'll have hell to pay later anyway. So this is actually the one data point I found to kind of quantify how YouTubers impacted us. So we ran a Kickstarter for the expansion that we are still working on after a long time. But so I was actually able to isolate just some days where there's really nothing else happening, and say a big game press covers the game, and how the pledges that it generated versus some big YouTuber did finding the game through a Kickstarter video, whatever roundup, and how much pledge that generated. And I mean, it doesn't really matter because all is awesome, but I think this just goes to show how much influence a YouTuber has. So the next thing is another video there's a purpose in playing this video, and I'll explain.
The war for the skies continues! Betrayal! Fierce pirate and dashing rogue Maximilian Valentine has been betrayed by crew member Markiplier, stealing his recipe for moonshine to moonshine and fleeing across the sands to a secret fleet. Grouped by his own pirate army, Markiplier seeks complete control of the sky lanes. Maximilian, fearing the worst, has been forced to turn to his once mortal enemy, the Biscuit Empire. Rear Admiral TV has agreed to this alliance, but only if Gunner Angry Joe is allowed aboard Maximilian's ship. Together, they venture forth to put down this new threat before both suffer at the hands of this new foe. But will it be enough?
So that was actually something we did just recently, and we were no longer working with any like players or like the network, and so we actually did another event just this year, and we just worked with the YouTubers directly, just people we know, and I think it's actually been really great doing like everything ourselves, because before everything was a black box. We didn't really know what was happening except at maybe the most general level. The format is what they like pitch in. But this time, I think we can work with YouTubers to come up with our own format and what they want to show. And so that was actually something that Jesse Koch just kind of invented, some narrative that he came up with, where like to just kind of justify why he's actually flying a ship this time. So like I see just work with Howard Tsao to come up with something like that, and it's pretty amazing, and where people just have the freedom to do whatever. And it's also been a great learning experience, because like we would before we wouldn't know, okay, how like what garnered views, or what like click-throughs like or anything. But this time we can basically track some data ourselves, and it's been actually really helpful, just kind of getting a sense of really how this whole thing works. And the event, I thought, went really well. We actually had a bunch of views, more views than really we've ever gotten for the game. So yeah, 5 million total views about, and the return is still really good, given that the game's been out for 2 years, and it wouldn't really have any Steam featuring or anything. So like all the new players that we got were basically from the video directly, pretty much. And plus click-through, I thought was pretty incredible. Once I kind of went through and found out like what it was, on average, the channel actually converted over 5% of the clicks to our store page, which I thought was pretty insane. The only downside was that it's like planning a wedding. It's huge logistical work. Just to figure out what 17 people with busy schedules, how they can all come together on the same day at the same time for 2 hours to play a game. It's actually a huge challenge, way more than I realized. Okay, and then so I'll pause and I'll turn it over to Keenan to give you guys a sense of what elements in gameplay can actually translate well to a YouTube audience.
Okay, so for a little bit, I'm going to talk a bit more about the YouTuber perspective and what they look for when they're playing a game, and what sort of content they try to create out of the games that they play. So the first thing I'd like to call into attention is what I would call eliciting a reaction, which is what a YouTuber looks for when they're playing a game, is to kind of find a moment where they can play off of a moment in the game to kind of remind the viewer who is playing it, and that makes sense. Where they're kind of the way it's easier to phrase it is, if you think of your game as a medium, these YouTubers are entertainers that are using your medium to create entertainment. So they need your game to provide them with a moment in which they can entertain. And so what that often ends up being is a moment when they can elicit a reaction and give a unique perspective on the game that no other channel can really do. Another way I like to phrase this is that imagine your game in a third-person perspective, where you're not playing as the player, but you're inhabiting the person watching the player play. You're literally like standing right behind them and watching someone play your game. And you have to think to yourself, is what I'm seeing still readable? Do I feel invested in what I'm watching, even though I'm not the one actually playing it? If the answer is yes, then your game will probably have a good chance of doing well on YouTube. If it's not, then you might want to take another look and see if there's a way to make it more readable or memorable to the audience that is watching the player. The second thing I think that is most important in design for medium is emergent gameplay. And we saw a little bit of this with the Jesse Cox Maximilian Valentine video that was played a couple seconds ago, where we want the game to not have a linear story so that it would be the same no matter who's playing it. If that's the case, then it doesn't really matter if you're playing it or the next YouTuber's playing it. What you prefer as a channel is to have something that leaves it somewhat open-ended, or rather gives you the tools to create your own story or your own, impactful and memorable moments. So emergent gameplay is moments when the creativity of what comes next or a story is invented by the player using the system that you've created. And these often do really well. So in that video you saw with Maximilian Valentine, he created this whole, rivalry between other players so that his audience would be more invested. And this is something that they would uniquely get from his channel and not from another one, which is a lot of value for YouTuber. Not only this, but this also allows for multiple videos out of a single game. Let's say if it's just a linear story, you can watch, part 1, which is the beginning, part 2, which is the end, and then suddenly you're like, okay, I've seen that, I need to watch more videos on this game. But if it's an emergent narrative, you can squeeze, 8, 9, 10 different videos as you kind of develop the story in your own way and it goes through its own kind of peaks and valleys. This also allows for a lot of creative input from the channel, as they are entertainers, but they're also creative people. And to stay entertaining for their followers, they need to add their own creative input to it that is reminiscent of their brand and their style as a whole. The last thing is the audience in this sort of format discovers with the player, which is incredibly valuable because it builds a lot more attention, like retention of the audience, and a lot more investment in what they're seeing. If you imagine a game where, like a horror game, where you're creeping into the next room, you turn the corner, and the person playing it is on edge because he doesn't know what's coming next. If you're watching him, chances are you're going to be on edge too because you feel empathy for him, and that's what a lot of YouTubers really thrive on. Next, I talk about easily shareable content and what it really takes for a game to be shareable with a whole audience and not so much just a niche. It's important, I would recommend taking any segment of your game, just kind of cut out a 2-minute blurb wherever, beginning, middle, or end, and really dive down and look at it with fresh eyes and think to yourself, if I had never played this game before, if I had not had any of the experience leading up to this, would I understand what's going on, at least to its basis, core? Would I understand maybe the objective or, an interesting moment that's happening, or something funny happened, would I be able to recognize that? It's important because oftentimes YouTubers, or the YouTube audience, can just kind of jump in on a video or skip through it or not really pay attention the same way as a player has to. They only get really bits and pieces of your game. And if that's the case, then you need to make sure, if you want your game to do well on YouTube, that it is readable for each of those little moments, and that an audience member that is kind of skipping through it can still gain something from it. But making it immediately engrossing, maybe like in the first 5 minutes have something that gives the player something shocking or surprising or something that they can react to, is an easy way of pulling the audience in right away so they're eager to see more. This also allows for more bite-sized entertainment, since a lot of YouTube videos kind of vary from a 2-minute long video to a 20-minute long video. You want to have a variety so people can kind of make their own cuts and not be at the whims of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, where there's kind of these artificial blocks put in. You want the YouTuber to be able to decide for themselves when they want to cut it. Next, I'll be talking about the formula and trends of the actual YouTube site, so you can be better to understand what YouTubers are looking at when they're making videos. In the past, YouTube's algorithm was simply based on views. So if a video got a lot of views and it was like 2 minutes long, and it wasn't very good, but it was like for some reason very interesting, people wanted just to click on it, that was all that people, that's what all really it needed to bump up in the views and become easily more discoverable. Nowadays, though, YouTube has changed its algorithm so that it rewards audience retention and regularity instead of just views. Now, what that means is a video that is maybe 10 minutes long and retains 80% of its audience until the end, and only has maybe 100,000 views, will likely perform better than a video that is 3 minutes long, only has a 5% retention rate, and has like 2 million views. So what this has changed in the ecosystem is that YouTubers are looking for more of an opportunity to have a multi-part series in which they can kind of extend their playthrough over these consistently styled, kind of bite-sized 10-minute chunks that they know people will stick from part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and that way their whole channel kind of rises as a result. So yeah, you can see here on the right, these are the Game Grumps, which also played Guns of Icarus, and here in this playlist they were playing Dark Souls, and you can see they have part 1, part 2, part 3, and they're all very similar styled, and they share a lot of the same views and the same audience as a result. Next, the ripple effect. What I call a ripple effect is the whole concept that YouTubers watch YouTube, which is kind of a crazy concept, I know. A lot of YouTubers actually find games that they play from other YouTubers that may have covered them first. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a game publisher or a game production house thinks when they think about YouTube is that, oh, if it is going to work for me, I need to target the big guys. I need to target people with 2 million subscribers, like, 500,000 subscribers. I need to target people that already have an established audience. That's not necessarily the case, because those people are often very busy, and it's going to be hard for you to bubble your game up to them unless it's a very natural fit. Instead, what I would advise is to target your niche. Really dig down into what the core experience of your game is, and then do some hard research to look through the site and see if you can find other channels that that make that same sort of experience content. So let's say you're making a very hardcore, first-person shooter game. You might want to go on YouTube and do some, research of your competition and see, are there YouTubers that play your competition? Are there YouTubers that play games like your game, but your game is a new one that hasn't come out yet? And then kind of track how they're doing, and even if they don't have a huge following, the chances are their following is so dedicated to that kind of genre that if they were to play your game, you're going to immediately get a whole new infusion of fans. Not only that, but other YouTubers will be keeping track on these different niche channels to see if something bubbles up they're interested in. So a lot of times you can get for example, Five Nights at Freddy's was, one of the smallest indie games of the year until a couple YouTubers played it. Then a couple more YouTubers watched them playing it, thought I could do something unique with this, and then made a video of their own, and like the ripple effect kind of just blossomed out into an enormously successful game. Next, lastly, we're talking about what's the right approach when targeting YouTubers, and this is more along the lines of a brand deal campaign. So what I was talking about previously was more organic video generation. That was all things you might want to do without investing any money in. You could definitely just reach out to people with keys and try to build your game so that it would appeal to the audience without actually infusing any money into the marketing side. However, when you're going for the actual marketing side, kind of like Guns of Icarus has done with its more brand-oriented campaigns, there's a very kind of specific authenticity that is required of all of your channels. For example, Guns could have grabbed a couple larger channels and to play their game, invested some more money to have them play it. But if they didn't fit the style of the game, and if their fans would have been disillusioned by the content that would have come out of it, then first off, the video would not have performed well. Secondly, the YouTuber would have had a bad rep for it, which they would have to work to get rid of. And thirdly, the game wouldn't come across very well because they're not trying very hard or they're not having fun. So really, instead, focus on authenticity with the people that are going to cover your game. Make sure that they're the right ones, that they will enjoy your game, or at the very least, they will know how to play it. And then once you've done that, then everything else should fall in line. Second, disclosure is important. Brand deals are totally fine and all, but it's important that the channel disclose somewhere in the description or in the video that they're being paid to do so. There has been some controversy on how exactly YouTubers should be doing this, but I would recommend, honestly, just having your YouTuber put the notice somewhere in the description that they were paid in a promotional manner to make the video for this game, because really you should let all the creative freedom of the game open to them. There have been a lot of campaigns that I've taken part in where they try to enforce us to play the game the way they want it to be shown, and not letting us kind of have our breathing room makes for really forced content that that your fans will, first off, not like, but secondly, will not like the game because it's so clearly away from the style they've come to expect from you. Lastly, I'll turn it back over to Howard, who will talk about how this is kind of a win for everyone involved, both YouTubers and the companies.
Yeah, so to sum everything up, we really, it's just really about creating an experience that will benefit everyone, really. So for us, we definitely benefited from the experiences, not only with just new players and whatnot, but it's also, a lot of the things that we do also has ripple effects. So if one YouTuber does a video, it really does bring some other YouTubers in interested to check out the game, which has been amazing. And I think on the YouTuber side, because I'm speaking on Keenan's behalf, but it is, so in addition to it being financially rewarding and whatnot, but it's also an opportunity for people to collaborate. That it's just an opportunity that they would not otherwise get to collaborate. So it's ultimately sort of fun, I think. And I think for players is if the experience is really, if the video is really about how the game is actually shown, right? Maybe if the game has a bug. So like there are times where in the video, like, oh, somebody shows that, they disappear on the ship. There's a pretty major bug that happened. It was like captured for all posterity. But then, well, it just shows that, hey, that's just how the game is. There's nothing misrepresented about it. So I think that's actually really important. So they get an experience of how the game is actually played, and to consume that video in a really engaging content. I think that's sort of what we would love to strive for. And then hopefully we can do something special with the players. And I would say this, if we do this right, hopefully right, is that the best case is that we just succeed and fail on our own merit. So the players, I guess in like all our experiences, no players ever said in comments or in a negative review, or let's say that, oh, some YouTuber video misrepresented the game or whatever. It's always been, oh, I have a bug. Oh, you nerfed my favorite gun. You suck. Or, your feedback, or introduce some new feature. It's like this ability sucks. So it's always been more about that. And that's really ultimately what we want. It's just for the new players to come in, play the game, and really judge the game for what it's worth. So, yep, I think with that, we will open up for questions. I don't know how we're doing on time, but I will, that's our contacts. And I'm actually going to close this off. So, I mean, if you didn't get this, don't worry about it, just grab me after, because I'm going to put Keenan back on video. So you see his face. Okay.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Keenan back on the big screen now. 所以我们现在就进入这个一层的Q&A 时间。那有任何的问题想要请教 Keenan 或是 Howard， 就是请直接举手，我们会有人递麦克风过去。有没有人想要针对 YouTube 的或是 YouTuber 相关影片的东西要提问？ Really? No questions?
Oh, okay.
You have 10 seconds. Okay. So, cool. All right. That's a bit surprise for us. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yep.
I guess this is a question for Howard Criken. Whichever one's best. What's the best way to contact YouTubers? What's the best approach? I guess what type of information should we provide? What stage of development should we start contacting YouTubers? Would be like beta or alpha too early, or should we have a finished product before we start contacting them?
Can you get that?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can answer this. So I think the best way to contact YouTubers, a lot of them use their email from what I know and how to get in touch with them. They usually have that listed on their channel in like the about section. They have like a kind of a business referrals section. But even more, I would say, actually use Twitter. I think Twitter is honestly more of the new way to get in touch with someone in like a fast way and kind of maybe use your credentials in kind of a quicker way. So I would definitely try reaching out to them with Twitter, kind of a very simple, kind of catchphrase, maybe what your game is, or that you think they'd like it for some reason. As to when you would start wanting to show that to them, that's going to really depend on your game and when you think you have something that is worth showing off to other people. And I would definitely wait longer so that you make sure that it's the best version of the game that can be shown. But I would say like around beta would probably be the time to start getting YouTubers in and letting them kind of mess around a bit and see if it fits their style. Definitely when reaching out to them, don't bog them down with a giant email that kind of explains your whole story and everything. They usually want really quick options. So if you have a download link, if you have a trailer to quickly show some gameplay, something that they can quickly read if it's right for them, that's probably the best way to do it. Just kind of a very quick email that gets to the point. Here's the trailer, here's a download link, so they don't have to bother asking for a link later. Just kind of give it to them and then hope that they do something. But if they don't, then no big deal. If it's more of a personal, like a niche channel, like a smaller one, then I would actually try to be a bit more personal. Like try maybe to share with them your story to some extent, because usually those channels don't get a lot of emails, they don't get a lot of messages on Twitter, and if they feel they know you, if they feel they like what you're offering, even that you thought of them, then that they'll probably be just flattered and willing to make a video on that alone.
Yeah, actually, let me add something, by the way. So I guess for us, or for anybody, it's best, the YouTubers, some of the YouTubers grow really fast, right? And it's pretty amazing to see how fast some of the YouTube channels have grown. So say last year, or maybe a year and a half ago, this is YouTuber that, with maybe 500 subscribers, with maybe 10, 15 views, that wanted to get a key to play the game. And it's if they asked us if we have time to stream with them, to say. So we'll spend a few hours streaming with them. And fast forward a year and a half, this person has almost 500,000 subscribers. So yeah, I think it's really to Keenan's point about targeting your niche and really just for us it's just really okay, if someone wants a key to the game, great, because I can give out as many keys as I want and see whatever. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, keys are worth not a lot, but their potential for worth is pretty high, because if you give it to the right person, it could potentially reach 500,000 people, but you wouldn't have known that until you make the effort and just send keys around. So definitely don't be skimpy with keys.
Is there any questions? Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Hello. 你好，请问大家是否有接受过遇到实况主他不接受商业的合作？就是那个实况主说我们不接受商业合作，我们玩的游戏都或者是观众，他们对于有商业合作的模式下实况主玩的游戏会比较反感的。然后第二个问题，那有没有遇过在实况这种非商业合作的实况主，他们在聊天室的时候会有，比如说你可能的竞争对手他在实况主玩你的游戏的时候，在聊天室放出比较负面的攻击，在聊天室里面洗版或者是恶意批评你的游戏，那如果你遇到会怎么处理？
I guess this is for our. I can translate for Keenan. What's the first? Oh, yeah. Basically, the first question is that how do you? I kind of got the first question too.
第一个问题是会不会有实况主？
Oh yeah, the commercial like collaboration. If this collaboration seems to be more on the commercial side, like you paid the YouTuber or something, then maybe the YouTuber will refuse or the audience may reject because they kind of know this is like getting paid or something?
Yeah, I think I guess on the audience side, I guess you can talk more about it. But just as far as rejection or whatnot, I mean, usually like the people that we reach out to or that people reach out to us are people like who already played the game, they already know. So that for us hasn't happened. But then again, I mean, largely, I don't know, I get rejected all the time, or maybe not even rejected, but just get ignored all the time. So, I can send out a bunch of emails, hey, you want to check out our game at PAX? You get a reply. So, from a lot of people, that happens all the time. So, it doesn't really bother me. It shouldn't bother anybody. I mean, it's like if someone makes an effort to get the word out and to approach a YouTuber, well, maybe it's not because the game's not good, because they're busy. Oh well, then we just keep trying really. So it shouldn't bother people that they didn't get a response, I think. And then on the audience side, I guess you can talk.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so a lot of brand deals that I've had definitely come to you and ask for a very kind of specific picture of the game they want promoted. And those are the ones that I've always had destined to fail, and the ones that I reject usually time and time again is when they tell me you can't show glitches, you can't talk about this, you need to at least mention this new mechanic that we think is really cool, sort of thing. All of those, you're right, if that were to make a video of them, the audience would see through it right away, they would hate it, they would all turn it down, it would be a disaster both for the game and for the YouTuber. So the promotional deals that actually do work are the ones that are very creatively free, the ones that say, here's the game, if you make a video, we can pay you this, but outside of that, literally just go at it, try and make something that you would enjoy. And it's really in the YouTuber's best interest to make a video that their fans wouldn't mind they're getting paid for. So it's not like they're trying to just make a video because they've been paid for, they're trying to make entertaining things regardless out of whatever they're given. So there have been times that I've been given a game and I played it and I think, this is really not something I would want to play normally, but I'm being paid to make a video for it, and I think I can make it unique to my style if I add this flair to it. And then I completely redesign the way I play it, and I go at it purely from the viewpoint of how to make this an entertaining video. And many times it ends up being great, and my fans usually love it. So it really, both people want the video to be good, if that makes sense. So work with YouTuber because they have your best interest in mind, whether you realize it or not.
So there's a second part of that question. So the second part was, when you run into some negativity in your channel, or even sometimes maybe the negativity comes from another YouTuber. I mean, have you run into or encountered any kind of this situation before, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah. Well, you get negativity all the time online. Really, it doesn't matter who you are. You're going to end up finding people that don't like you for something. So, in the comments section, there's a lot of criticism, but it usually is outweighed by people that are supportive. And even if you do find the criticism, it's usually not really valid based on whatever reason. I don't really have any problems with other YouTubers because everyone in this line of work really kind of goes through the same thing and knows what it's like. I know of other people that have had problems with them. Usually it's a debate around a fan base that has attacked another one. Usually it's honestly not the YouTuber that is to blame for it, but it's fans that feel like they have been wronged by another channel and they will go out of their way to try and mess with them. These don't really happen though in these kind of promotional campaigns that we're talking about. Usually everyone is collaborating, working together, trying to make the best out of the situation they have, and make the most fun they can all working together. So I've really hardly had any bad experiences with YouTubers, and the fans just kind of take them with a grain of salt.
Does Howard have anything to add to that? Do you have anything to add? 这样 OK 吗？ Go. Sorry, wait for the microphone. Sorry.
About the promotional kind of campaigns, I read an article recently that there was in the United States there was a regulatory agency, I don't remember which one, sorry, which requires now disclosure for any video YouTuber which has any kind of payment at all. First of all, I'm just curious, is that actually the case? Was that true, that article? And second, if so, has this had any effect on your business, or how do you think it affects the business?
Yeah, ever since I think I started doing brand deals, I always put in the description that this video was part of a brand deal. I don't think there's no requirement to actually say in the video that you're being paid to make it, but somewhere on that page it needs to be readily available for those that that look for it. It really hasn't really changed much. I think when I first started doing it, there was a couple comments of like, oh, he's selling out, or like, oh, I mean, people react negatively to whenever money comes into anything. So it's those scenarios though were kind of few and more isolated in the beginning. Later on, as long as the video was good, people don't really care. Honestly, they're pretty much happy if you get paid for it because they recognize that if you get paid, there's more likely a chance you'll make another video like it. So people like to see that the people they follow are doing well, and I've had pretty supportive fans for the most part.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
So I think one or two last questions. 还有最后1、2个问题的时间，还有人想问吗？
你好，我相信 YouTube 它这个平台，除了你们单方向就是帮你的游戏推广给全世界，那其实它也是一个多项的平台，就是说玩家可以透过它上面的一些社群机制，又把它的回馈给你们。那你对于说玩家回馈你们会收到非常多的意见，那你们只能利用这些回馈去，就是创造出一个更受玩家欢迎的一个游戏。
I guess that's
for Howard.
I think the feedback that we get, say from the YouTube audience, the way we handle it isn't really different from how we handle all other feedbacks, whether that's from Steam forums, our own forums, or social media, which is in game. So like the way we try to do it is not to treat the ideas differently between our ideas. This is for improvement of the game, right? And the player ideas. So we'll actually just try to power everything into, we use Trello, we use like a project management tool, right? So we'll just lock everything. But then from that, we'll just regularly review the ideas and see which ones we can implement. And I think by now the players know that we have like a 6-month backlog for like anything that we do. so it's just really more about that, just having a little bit of a workflow or a pipeline to be able to digest all the different ideas from everywhere and to try to see which one we want to tackle, what's higher priority, and then basically just feed it into our sprint. Like this is what we want to work on for say a 2-week period. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that I have to wrap up now. So 就是时间应该也快到了，那因为等一下有些事情要提醒大家，那我们这一场的演讲就到这边结束，请大家再给一次热烈的掌声，给Howard。Sorry for Keenan that you cannot be here today, but just email Keenan or follow him on Twitter and follow his YouTube channel, and all be well. All is well.
Thank you.